Hello, hello. Okay, so this is the first video for the Earth and Space Unit. We're going to learn about permafrost, okay? So before we get started with permafrost, there's a few preliminary concepts you need to learn. First of all, you need to know what gases are greenhouse gases. These are gases that contribute to warming our planet, which is not a good thing right now. But we're going to talk about that much more later. But for now, you need to know that there are several greenhouse gases. The most important ones are CO2, CH4, which we call methane, water vapor, meaning evaporated water, and nitrous oxide. Okay, you just kind of need to know that these contribute to global warming. The other preliminary concept you need to know is that when things rot, when there is decomposition, you need to know the gases that are produced. Some gases are produced when things rot. So this is my fancy drawing of a skeleton. And when this guy is rotting, we're going to have some gases coming off. And what are those gases? Those gases, amongst other gases, there are a few other gases, but the important ones that we're going to look at are CO2 and methane, okay? So when wet stuff in the ground is biologically active, there's bacteria working away at it and decomposing it, it's going to release carbon dioxide and methane. Once you have those ideas in your head, talking about permafrost is going to make much more sense, okay? So let's start with permafrost, okay? Permafrost is any land that stays below 0 degrees for at least 2 years. Okay, so less than 0 degrees Celsius for more than 2 years. Okay, so up north in Canada, if we look at the map of America, up north in Canada, right, maybe the top quarter-ish or so, all of this part is permafrost. Okay, what does that mean? That means that even in summer, during the warmest months, the ground in that area does not completely thaw out. There is ice under the ground. Now, if you look at the ground, let's look at sort of a cross-section from the side, okay? If you went up there, you would see some grass, we call it tundra, some small bushes and so on. In certain areas you might see trees, but mostly it's just like this. And this would be soil and ice. Soil plus ice, meaning the land under this surface, the soil under this surface is frozen. And it stays frozen in winter, which is not hard to imagine, but it stays frozen even in summer, even when it's warmest during the year. Now, the thing though is that if you went to those areas in the middle of summer, you might see that the ground is actually squishy and wet and it's not ice. And the reason is that permafrost means that there is some ice underneath, but the top part of the soil might be thawed out in summer. Okay, we call this the active layer. Because in summer, you might get a little area that thaws out and the bacteria wake up and they decompose stuff and there's worms and there's all kinds of things in there. But if this area is a permafrost area, if you dig deep enough, you will find ice. That ice has to have been there for at least 2 years for it to be called permafrost. In some areas, it may be 20 or 30,000 years old. It hasn't thawed out in that much time, okay? Next, what we're going to talk about global warming in a while, but I want you to learn a few things about what is happening with our permafrost. Now, our planet is warming up. We're going to talk about that later, but when the planet warms up, and the air warms up, what's going to happen is these areas of permafrost are going to get warmer and warmer, and the permafrost is going to melt. And so what's going to happen is the area of permafrost is actually going to recede. It's going to move further and further upwards. And then this area all of a sudden will not all of a sudden, but slowly will lose the permafrost. This area will not stay frozen, and it's going to go further north in Canada for there to be permafrost because overall the climate's getting warmer. Okay, I'm back. So we're going to look at some of the consequences of permafrost melting. Now the first one is that when you have frozen soil, the bacteria and everything in it is frozen and it's static. It's not changing, it's not really living or breathing, it's kind of frozen in place. When you melt that permafrost, all that soil and bacteria and things, it all kind of wakes up and it starts decomposing stuff again. When it decomposes, we already saw that it releases methane. Okay? You know that decomposing stuff releases methane because when you fart, some of the gases that come out is methane. Farts are flammable because of the methane, and it's because bacteria in your gut is decomposing the food that you ate. Please don't light your farts. Release of methane. Unfortunately, we already saw that methane is one of the greenhouse gases. So when we have huge parts of Canada where the permafrost melts, you have humongous area that are slowly releasing methane, which is a very strong greenhouse gas, okay? That's a bad thing, and it's not like we can put plastic all over all of northern Canada and gather it up or something. When permafrost melts, it's released. It's a really bad consequence because it makes our planet even get warmer. Number two, it's going to affect ecosystems. When the ice melts, it's going to affect animals and plants. It's related to consequences 3 and 4, which are when, for example, if the permafrost on a sloped land becomes thawed out, all that hard ice that kept the slope together becomes loose, and you can imagine that there would be landslides. Also, as permafrost and frozen soil thaws out, that stuff with rain and so on, it's going to get washed out to rivers and out to sea. We have soil erosion. Soil erosion is when soil gets washed away by wind or water, and we lose that top layer of soil, which is the healthiest part that plants need to grow in. And if all these things happen, you can imagine that's affecting the plants and the animals that need those plants. So those are the 4 consequences of melting permafrost. So to sum up, permafrost is land that has ice under it that has been frozen. It's been less than 2 degrees for at least 2 years. In permafrost land, there is often an active layer at the top, which thaws out during the summer. But under that, you will have ice. Because of our warming planet, global warming, permafrost in a lot of areas is thawing out. And when it thaws out, we have some negative consequences. One of them is that a greenhouse gas, methane, is released. Another one is that we have landslides. Another one is that soil gets washed away, soil erosion. And the last one is that it affects the ecosystems, which is the plants and the animals. Okay, I hope this helps with permafrost. See you next time.